When I was around 7 or 8, Halloween was my favorite night of the year. That particular Halloween, my mom dropped me off at my friend Sean's house so I could go trick-or-treating with him and our other friend Johnny. Sean's sister, who was older and distant, was usually around, but never really acknowledged me, and I didn't think much of it. That night, though, no one was supervising us, just 3 kids running loose in the dark. At first, it was exciting. We darted from house to house, our pillowcases filling with candy, barely able to contain our laughter. The freedom felt amazing. After a few hours, Johnny had to go home, but Sean and I weren't done yet. The streets were quieter now, with fewer trick-or-treaters, and the air had turned chilly. We ventured down streets we hadn't explored yet, feeling a mix of excitement and slight unease. Then we saw him, a man pushing a stroller slowly down the sidewalk behind us. He seemed harmless enough at first, just another dad out with his kid. But as we knocked on more doors, he kept getting closer. Eventually, the man caught up to us. His voice was soft, almost sing-song, as he said, "How's the trick-or-treating going, boys?" We answered, polite but nervous. Then he made an offer that we couldn't resist. "I've got candy left at my house. You can have all of it. It's just up the street." Sean and I exchanged glances. A jackpot of candy? We couldn't say no. We followed him, and he led us deeper into the neighborhood, away from the main streets. The further we walked, the quieter it got. No lights, no people, just the sound of our footsteps echoing in the darkness. He kept talking to his stroller, whispering to the baby we assumed was inside. But something felt off. He was walking faster now, and we struggled to keep up with our heavy bags of candy. When we reached his house, it was dark. No porch light, no Halloween decorations. The man unlocked the door and pushed the stroller inside, then invited us in. Sean went first, and I hesitated. I asked if we could leave the door open. The man paused, then smiled, too wide, too forced, and said, "Of course." As he disappeared into another room, Sean stepped over to the stroller and lifted the canopy. I saw his face go pale. Without a word, he turned to me and whispered, "We need to leave. Now." We bolted out the door, our pillowcases dragging behind us as we ran. My heart pounded as we sprinted down the dark street. We didn't stop until we reached the corner. That's when a neighbor called out to us from her porch. "Do you boys know that man?" Sean, still catching his breath, told her about the stroller and how the man offered us candy. The woman's face darkened. "He doesn't have a child," she said firmly. "I've seen him before." She drove us home and we explained everything to our parents. That night the police came, but no one ever told me what they found at that house. Sean and I never spoke of it again, but I'll never forget the look on his face when he saw what was inside that stroller. Something that wasn't human.
Story 2. The Clown at the Door Halloween 2016 started like any other. My parents were out for the evening and I was tasked with handing out candy to the few trick-or-treaters who braved our quiet cul-de-sac. It wasn't a busy night. We lived in a dead-end neighborhood, and by 8 p.m. the streets were silent. I spent the evening catching up on homework and binging Game of Thrones. Around 9:30 p.m., long after the trick-or-treaters had stopped, the doorbell rang. Vito, my small terrier, went berserk. I sighed, figuring it was some late-night straggler. When I opened the door, I froze. Standing on the porch, framed by the dim light of our porch lamp, was a tall figure in a clown costume. His mask wasn't a cheap, goofy one. It was twisted, grotesque, the kind that makes your stomach flip. He didn't say a word, just waved slowly and pointed at the empty brown sack in his hand, as if asking for candy. Something about him felt wrong, but I didn't want to seem rude. Through the storm door, I told him we were out of candy and quickly shut the door, locking it behind me. I stayed by the door, listening. There were no footsteps. He didn't leave. Instead, the doorbell rang again. Vito barked louder this time, sensing my fear. My heart raced. Why was he still here? It wasn't a child or some harmless prank. I glanced out the side window but couldn't see him anymore. Maybe he left. I decided to head upstairs and turned off all the lights on the first floor, hoping it would make him leave. I carried Vito up with me and shut him in my room to stop his barking. I told myself it was over, that it was just some random prank, but then I heard it snap. The latch on the storm door had been forced open. I stood at the top of the stairs, paralyzed as I heard the front door rattling, the knob turning back and forth. I scrambled to text my family, but no one replied. I was on my own. I tried calling my dad. No answer. Then my brother, who brushed it off as a Halloween prank. But it didn't feel like a prank anymore. The doorbell rang again, and I stifled a scream. Why wouldn't he leave? Minutes passed, feeling like hours. I waited, hoping it was over. Then, just as I started to relax, I heard something outside my window. It was a soft, rhythmic thump, like someone tapping on the glass. But I was on the second floor. No one could be outside my window, could they? I approached the window slowly, pulling back the blinds just an inch, and my blood ran cold. There, staring at me through the glass, was the clown, his twisted mask pressed against the window. He was holding onto a ladder, my dad's ladder, which he had taken from the backyard. I screamed, stumbling backward. I locked myself in my parents' room and dialed 911, barely able to speak through my shaking. The operator assured me that help was on the way, but it felt like hours. The police arrived, and I heard them banging on the door. I didn't come out until they called my name. They found no sign of the man, but they confirmed that he had broken the storm door latch and propped the ladder against the side of the house. I never found out who he was or what he wanted, but I still see that mask in my nightmares. Story 3: The Party in the Vacant House. It was the Saturday before Halloween, and my friends and I were scrambling for plans. Kate, always bold, posted on her Instagram looking for a party, and to our surprise, someone hit her up right away. The guy, someone we loosely knew, sent us the address for a house party in the next town over. It seemed perfect, and even though we didn't recognize the host, we figured it was worth checking out. The rules were simple: bring your own drinks, stay inside, and at least one girl for every guy. The house was big, almost too big. When we arrived, the front yard was scattered with cars, but something felt off. There was no music until we got close to the door, and even then, it was muffled, distant. We walked in, and the house was dimly lit, orange lights giving it a spooky, eerie atmosphere. People were there, but we didn't recognize anyone. An older man greeted us. John, he said, the father of the host. He was in his 50s, much too old to be mingling with college kids at a party like this. His presence felt wrong, but he was friendly enough, offering to put our drinks in a cooler and making small talk. Still, his constant hovering around the girls felt unsettling. As the night went on, I started to feel strange. I hadn't even had that much to drink, but everything around me began to blur. My friends noticed too, pulling me aside when they saw how quickly I was fading. Kate grabbed my arm and whispered, "We need to go." Suddenly, the door swung open, and 2 police officers stormed in. Everyone froze. I couldn't think straight, but I remember John, the host's dad, slipping out through the back door as the police made their way inside. We quickly left, our heads spinning. As we drove away, we realized something else was strange. The house had no furniture. It was completely empty, save for the beer pong tables and people. The next morning, I woke up to a series of texts from an unsaved number. "You left something here," the messages read. "I'm coming to your house. Can you come to the door?" My stomach flipped. It was John. He had my number. When I told my friends, they reminded me how out of it I was at the party, how John had been all over us. And then it hit me. We never met his son. There never was a son. We went to the police, and they confirmed the house was vacant, abandoned for months. John had thrown a party there just to lure us in. I never heard from him again. but the thought of what could have happened that night still keeps me awake.